Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from River North Brewery based in Denver, Colorado. We've done quite a few of their beers and a majority are deviations or different versions of this same beer. The beer in question is, of course, their venerable Mr. Sandman. It's an Imperial Stout, and they keep doing twists, almost like Hubbard's Cave has their base stout, and then they make it into a completely different beer with different additives. That's kind of what River North Brewery is doing here with Mr. Sandman. And today is the 2021 release of their Mayan Chocolate version. 11.1% ABV on this. And this, like oh so many that are out there and that we've reviewed to date, is that classic kind of Mexican hot chocolate inspired stout. So it's got chocolate, it's got vanilla, it's got chilies, and it's got cinnamon. Sure, yeah, we've reviewed a lot of beers like this with that lineup, and we keep getting them. And there's a good reason that there's so many in the marketplace and I keep buying them. It is just a beautiful combination of ingredients that really, in particularly, works quite well in an Imperial Stout format. So, label art on this one, as always, it's just a nice clean design from River North Brewery. It says Mr. Sandman, Mayan Chocolate, it says it right on there. Gives you the year, gives you the rundown of the ingredients, so they give you everything you need to know right on the label, which is very, very nice. So without further ado, we'll get this cracked and poured right in the old stout glass today. All right, this one is quite thick, so we're going to give it a bit of a glug. All right, we've already got some head going there. I can see the carbonation slowly working its way up. I could probably get this whole bottle in there. Yeah, there we go. I was thinking that that glass was bigger than this bottle. Perfect, perfect. Oh, wow, big aromas. As I'm continuing to pour this and get the last vestiges, we don't want to let it go to waste. All right. So visually, absolutely pitch black as you would expect. I did give a nice bit of aggression, but honestly, it looks like it may not have even needed to happen because this is a thick, lush, creamy head. It almost looks like the head you would see form on a Guinness. It's very, very nice. As I said, I could see very small rush of tight carbonation as the head was forming, but it's so pitch black now, I can just see the tiny bits of residual cling. I know the camera won't pick that up at all, but trust me, it's there. It's very tight, very fine, obviously helped contribute to this lovely head formation. So, let's get right up over this for a full sniff now. Oh, wow, yeah. Oh, man, yeah. Wow, that smells really, really good. So, the underlying malt bill is very, very clear. A lot of roast, a lot of underpinning of earthy, roasty coming out of the malts. There's also a lot of chocolate. Now, yes, this does have added chocolate in it, but I'm not sure if the chocolate I'm smelling is coming from the malt bill or from the chocolate itself. Could be either way, but it's there and it smells incredible. You can really smell the chilies on this one too. They tend to have a pretty pronounced aroma, so if you're making a beer kind of like this, no, in general, you're going to smell the chilies on them. They don't have a hard time jumping out of the glass. The cinnamon on here, they said they added just a touch of cinnamon, but I can smell the cinnamon on the nose. The one ingredient that I'm not picking up in the aroma profile is the vanilla. And to be fair, yeah, it's kind of fighting through some really big, bold, in-your-face aromas. So we'll see what happens when we jump in for the flavor profile, but it looks fantastic, smells fantastic. We've had many of their Mr. Sandman iterations. They're all great. Let's jump in, try out this one. Oh, man. Oh, yes. Oh, man. Just this combination of ingredients in a stout is just transcendently delicious. It really, really is, especially when it's done right. And River North, really, they do their stouts right for my money. I've had enough of them now. I see what they're about. I see you, River North, and yes, I approve. Okay, so before we even get into the incredible layers and complexity of flavor, let's talk body, let's talk mouthfeel. This is a weighty beer. It's 11.1%. This is definitely heavy. Not even medium heavy, it's squarely in the heavy range. And frankly, it punches above its weight. 11.1, that's not a low ABV by any stretch, but this has real heft to it. It's got a lot more presence and weight to it than you would perhaps expect to find in an 11.1. The mouthfeel. good bit of resistance here. It definitely has a thick quality to it. Agitating on the palate, you can really feel that resistance as you move it, and it feels very silky, very creamy indeed as it moves around the palate. So frankly, it's got this nice thick quality that helps pair well and work in tandem with that weighty body. The body and the mouth feel really nice parallels there. Very, very well done texturally. In terms of the flavor profile, it's one of these big, bold, pungent in your face added ingredient lists. The first thing I noticed right away when I swallowed was the intensity of the underlying malt bill. It's very, very roasty. It's got a lot of earthy, roasty qualities to it. And yes, perhaps just as with the aroma, there was chocolate coming out of the chocolate edition. It could be coming from the malt bill. I can't tell you which, but there is distinct chocolate. And we're not talking sweet chocolate. This is dark chocolate. Baker's chocolate, distinct cacao. It's chocolate in its true form and not sugar added. It's chocolate. It's got a deep cacao flavor to it. The chilies also really punch through quite clearly. And kind of like they also punch through in the aroma, and I guess I should make this clarification. It's not unbalanced at all. I'd say the balance is fantastic. Chilies are one of the ingredients in this that would be easy to overdo. It is not overdone. It's nice. You get a nice bit of that flavor without it being over the top, and you get a little bit of heat coming from the chilies, and it just kind of helps to round out this entire beer drinking experience. The cinnamon is not really prevalent until you get on the finish on the back end. That's when really the cinnamon comes into play. The vanilla I didn't get on first sip, just like I couldn't detect it in the aroma. So when we go back in for our second sip here, I will be picking it apart again. There's a lot of complexity, a lot to talk about. We will jump in for a second sip. Then we will talk more specifically about the balance and more specifically about the finish. But on first sip, this is another good one. Here we go, take two. Big, big roast. Big roast. Earthy, roasty, chocolatey cacao. Okay, yeah, there's the cinnamon. The cinnamon pops in kind of in the first 3-4 seconds, it seems, at least from the second sip. Now, I was really being acutely attentive to it, with this slight suggestion of booziness that comes out of this beer. And it's a fleeting suggestion, almost akin to barrel aging, but without the underpinnings of barrel aging characteristics. It's kind of like that. That's where the vanilla I'm really picking up. And the chilies, again, come in very clearly, very quickly. What I did notice on second sip, of course, it's thick. This one really does stick and coat the palate. The chili, not the flavor being any different. It's beautifully balanced. But the heat, there's actually a bit more intensity to it than I caught on first sip. So we're adding another sip on top of a sip I just had on a very thick palate coating beer. That's rather to be expected. And again, the cinnamon is really popping out of this one to me on the back end. It's on the finish. So what I got to say is, as we think about the balance on this is spot on. This combination of ingredients, I love it in beers. Some I've had that were absolute perfection. Some I've had that I would have tweaked a little bit. This is one of those in the upper echelon category. I think the balance of exactly what they did is excellent. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I'm not just talking about the additives here. I mean the balance of their malt bill as well. Whatever malts they chose, whatever ratios and volumes to go in tandem with the ratios and volumes of these specific additives, they nailed it. I would not tweak a thing about this beer. It is absolute perfection for one of these Mexican style hot chocolate kind of flavored stouts. I think they nailed it out of the park on this. I absolutely love the balance. So let's address the finish. The finish on this is longer than average. It's not quite as long as some, which is maybe a little bit surprising because there is such a big flavor intensity here, and indeed including that underpinning of the malt bill. It is quite roasty, and it's got a lot of earthy roast qualities to it, but it does have an underpinning of a decent bit of bitters. But it's not quite to that same intensity that you might find in some, and I don't know what hops that they put in with this, but I don't think that they put them in the boil heavily to extract out a bunch of alphas. And I don't think it was a heavy hand, because hops are a very pungent ingredient and you can pick them out quite clearly. In this one, it's not super bitter. The bulk of the bitters I'm getting out of this one taste like, to me, they're coming from the malt bill. And it's nice, but it's not as long as some. So yeah, it's very good. But how does this actually finish beyond the length? It's got the underpinning of the roasty malt bill. That's quite clear. And interestingly, even though it was just a touch of cinnamon, the cinnamon is still one of the dominant flavors you can keep having lingering on the back as the finish dissipates to nothing, and the chilies as well. So the vanilla really only pops on the front side. Everything else you can still taste all the acidity in, and it's very clean until you just realize, oh, the flavor's gone. And then you go back in for another sip, and then that heat of those chilies hits you yet again. So yeah, I love these stouts like this, these Mexican-inspired hot chocolate kind of formula. They're fantastic. This version from River North is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to take my time, sip on this one, come up with my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was River North Brewery's Mr. Sandman, the Mayan Chocolate version 2021 release, an Imperial Stout brewed with chocolate, vanilla, chilies, and cinnamon. This one clocks in at 11.1% ABV. River North Brewery is based in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. So this was one of those beers that nearly swept the board. It was so close to a perfect score. Only one category, it didn't sweep it, and that was in the finish. The finish on this beer was excellent, and it was certainly very much longer than average, but it didn't quite last as long as I anticipated. It was a very clean and subtle dissipation to the end, but it didn't have quite the intensity of bitters, I think, that otherwise could have pushed it out. Now, I'm not really considering that a knock, considering this was kind of a Mexican hot chocolate inspired Imperial Stout. So if it had been overloaded with bitters, it might not have tasted exactly right. But be that as it may, that's what I experienced. But really nitpicky here, I only docked 2 points. The finish gets an 8 out of 10. And it did get a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, head/retention, appearance, balance, feeling/intangible, and example of style, which does bring the total score on River North Brewery's Mr. Sandman, the Mayan Chocolate version 2021 release, to a 98 out of 100. Guys, there's a lot of these beers out there in the marketplace for good reason. I keep picking these up also for that same reason, and it is they just work. These Mexican hot chocolate inspired stouts are just, in general, very, very good beers if you're into beers with additives. This is an excellent, excellent example. I would say one of the best I've had to date. I absolutely love this combination of ingredients in a well-done Imperial Stout, and this fit that bill to a T. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit the bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.